Well, approximately early in 2008. We were talking about climbing the mountain here at church, so I always wanted to do that. We went up and climbed it, and unfortunately we didn't research it enough, I guess, and we tried to do it all in one day, and it was just too far. So it was on my mind for about 7 years how I had failed to reach the top.
I was up on the first trip that Dwight went on. This was years ago, and we didn't make it to the top. Like Dwight said, we didn't plan it well enough, so we just kind of made it to base camp, stopped, and went home.
It was another bucket list, and of one of the things I wanted to do. And when we missed out on it in 2008, it just worked on my mind a lot, off and on. And I kept thinking, man, you passed up a really good opportunity here. And it also meant, in relationship with God, like getting closer. That's the way it seemed. And I really wanted to do this.
Dwight started training for the trip to Mount Whitney probably about 6 months before we left for it. And I know that really frustrated my grandma. All that Dwight really talked about for 6 months was Mount Whitney. So it was definitely something he wanted to do, and you could tell that if he was going to do it, he was going to succeed at it.
Me and Dwight decided we were going to be partners. He had the tent, I believe, and I had the food.
I was determined, and I prayed about it. I prayed about it quite often. And in fact, I prayed about it off and on all the way up the mountain that day.
So as I'm talking with Dwight on the way up, he's talking about this is his last time doing this. His goal was to make it to the top. And so when he was explaining that to me, something kind of clicked inside, was that, no, we've got to make it up. We've got to do this.
Needless to say, I had 13 or 14 other guys that were just, they were awesome. I mean, they all cheered me on and made me part of the group, even though I was a lot older than most of them.
And you could see the struggle that they're going through, but they just kept fighting, especially guys like Dwight, who's 70 years old.
And most of all, probably Nick. He could have been up front, probably number one. And he stayed behind and helped me and Randall out.
He was my partner, and so I didn't feel like leaving Dwight in the back was an option.
And he encouraged us and kept telling me, you're doing good, you're doing good. And so we just set a pace, and me and Randall and Nick just stayed steady with it. And
I remember when we stopped for water, Donnie and Dwight were kind of trailing by, and I can't remember when Dwight said it, but I remember him saying that it was like the tortoise was passing the hare, because he was like the guy in the back, and he was like slowly moving forward while we were getting water, and him and Donnie just kept going, and Donnie was like, hey, yeah, you guys will just catch up with us. And they were far. Like, I mean, it was like the steps too. It was like the hardest part of the journey. It was awesome because Dwight was the first one to make it to base camp.
with God's help, we achieved what we wanted. That last couple of miles, you could see the top, and it just seemed so far away after we'd come so far. And we just continued setting a pace and believing that I could make it. And once in a while I'd catch somebody coming down, another climber, and I would ask them, how much further? And they would always say, oh, it's not much further. And I continued going and continue, and finally we got on the last mountain, and looking at nothing but boulders ahead, and there was two guys coming down, and I said, how much further? And they said, you're almost there. It isn't more than 200 yards. And I just couldn't believe it. And then finally, within about 5 more minutes, it come into view, and boy, what an exhilaration.
And I just remember seeing Dwight and just the joy that he had for finally making it there, and how all the hard work had paid off, and that he'd accomplished one of his dreams that he's had for probably, I don't know, since the last time we went 7 years ago.
When Dwight made it to the top, he signed the book, and he had said, you know, praise God, He is the reason. And I was like, I was blown away because all of our quotes was like, I made it and we conquered the mountain. I think that was mine, like we conquered the mountain. But Dwight's was, praise God, he is the reason. Yeah. Dwight, how do you feel, man?
Brutally beat.
Yeah, man, you did it.
Praise God.
Yeah. Inspiration right here. 70 years old. Conquered the mountain at 70 years old. Woo! Yeah. Praise God. He's the reason.
So many things had to fall into place to make this climb. Well, I owe God everything. And he was good enough to let me fulfill a dream and give me enough physical strength.
Even though God places a dream in your heart, you have to work for it. And that's what I saw Dwight do.
He can fulfill your dreams more than any you can possibly imagine.